Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're breaking down a proposed cancer protocol that takes a very different approach. It doesn't just try to poison tumors, it actually tries to starve them while at the same time making the rest of your body stronger. It's a really fascinating metabolic strategy, so let's dig in and see how it's supposed to work. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the protocol's really unique target, something called cancer stem cells. Then we'll get into its two-pronged metabolic attack. After that, we'll cover the foundational therapies that are for all patients, and then the tiered plan that ramps up for different stages of cancer. And finally, we'll cover some really critical caveats you need to know about. All right, first things first. To really get what this protocol is trying to do, you have to understand what it's aiming for. See, it doesn't just go after every single cancer cell. Instead, it focuses all its firepower on a very specific and very powerful group of cells hiding inside the tumor. Right, these are the cancer stem cells, and you can kind of think of them like the queen bees in a hive. They're a tiny fraction of the total tumor, but they have this unique, scary ability to regenerate the entire thing. They're what drives the cancer to grow back, even after aggressive treatment. So the core logic here is pretty simple. If you can take out these stem cells, you can potentially deal a fatal blow to the cancer's ability to survive and return. Okay, so you've got these incredibly resilient cells. How in the world do you go after them? Well, this protocol proposes a really clever two-part metabolic strategy. It's designed to turn the cancer cell's own unique biology against them. So here's the first big idea. The protocol works to activate our mitochondria, the little powerhouses inside our cells. Now, for your healthy cells, this is great. It's like a turbo boost. But for many cancer cells, which often have a messed up metabolism, this exact same activation is toxic. It's kind of like trying to force a diesel engine to run on high-octane gasoline. It can't handle it. The whole thing sputters and dies. And then, prong number 2 of the attack, you starve it. Cancer cells are notoriously greedy, and this protocol zeroes in on their 2 favorite meals, glucose, which is just sugar, of course, and an amino acid called glutamate. So the idea is really straightforward. If you can starve the cancer cells while at the same time boosting the healthy ones, you create an environment where the cancer just can't survive. So that's the theory. But how does it actually work in practice? Well, it all starts with a foundational layer of treatments. And this part, according to the source, applies to every single patient. It doesn't matter what kind of cancer they have or what stage it's at. You've got 4 key pillars holding this whole thing up. First, it starts with targeted supplementation of vitamin D and zinc to get the body systems in order. That's then combined with a very strict ketogenic diet, which is the main tool for cutting off that glucose supply. And finally, you have exercise, or alternatively, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, that's HBOT, to put even more metabolic stress on those cancer cells. And look, they get really specific here. For vitamin D, it's not just about taking a pill. The goal is to get your actual blood levels up to a therapeutic target of at least 80 nanograms per milliliter. The diet also has a really tough specific goal. The aim is to push your Glucose-Ketone Index. That's just a ratio of your blood glucose to your ketones, all the way down to 2 or even lower. Getting a number that low means you're in a deep, therapeutic state of ketosis, which is what creates that hostile glucose-starved environment for the cancer. Okay, so you have that foundation that everyone gets, right? On top of that, the protocol starts layering on more targeted interventions. And the intensity of this next phase depends entirely on whether the cancer is considered low, intermediate, or high grade. It scales up the attack. And this table really lays it all out. You can see exactly how the attack ramps up. For low-grade cancers, you see 2 repurposed drugs introduced at pretty low doses. For intermediate grade, bam, those doses get jacked up, and new things are added to the mix, like high-dose IV vitamin C and even multi-day fasting. Then, for the most aggressive high-grade cancers, the drug doses go even higher, and a specific drug called DAWN is added. And its whole job is to block that second fuel source we talked about, glutamate. It's a clear, escalating ladder of metabolic pressure. All right, so that's the whole layered approach from the base foundation all the way up. But, and this is really important, before we wrap up, we have to talk about a couple of major caveats that come straight from the source material. You really need these to have the full picture. And this is probably the biggest caveat of all. It's a direct quote from the source. The full protocol has not been tested together. So while some of the individual pieces, like a keto diet, have some research behind them, this specific recipe, this combination of diet, supplements, and drugs in this specific way hasn't been put through a formal clinical trial as a single package. That is absolutely crucial to understand. There's another warning from the source, and this one might sound a little weird at first. It gives a very strong warning to avoid antioxidants. Why would you do that? Well, remember how the protocol tries to kill cancer cells by activating their mitochondria and creating stress? Antioxidants would basically undo that. They could end up protecting the very cancer cells the therapy is trying to destroy. So all of this leaves us with one big, provocative question. If we set aside the specifics of this one protocol for a second, could this whole concept be a peek into the future of cancer treatment? Is this idea of attacking cancer's unique metabolic weaknesses, of starving the tumor while you nourish the body, a real, viable new frontier in oncology? It's a pretty compelling thought, and it's something researchers are definitely looking into right now.